Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a seriously fascinating connection. We're bridging the gap between sleep science, your daily habits, and the extreme environments that actually forge today's top tech founders.
So, let's kick things off with a slightly wild question. What exactly connects your body's sleep cycle to America's most polarizing tech company? It sounds like a total stretch, right? Connecting personal chronobiology to a massive data analytics firm like Palantir. But as we're going to see, the core principles of relentless optimization and high operations tempo are identical, whether you're looking at the microbiological level or the macro-organizational level.
Here's our roadmap for today. First up, mastering your biological clock. Then, we'll look at larks, owls, and performance. Third, eating and sleeping for success. Fourth, we'll step inside the founder factory itself. And finally, cultivating extreme agency.
All right, Section 1. Mastering your biological clock. The science of circadian rhythms and time policies. You know that groggy, social jet lag you feel when the clocks change? Well, our society's time policies literally rewire our biological rhythms. A recent Stanford study actually compared two models, permanent standard time versus permanent daylight saving time. And they found that permanent standard time is, without a doubt, much better for our circadian clocks. Why? It's simple. Morning light speeds up our circadian cycle, keeping us perfectly aligned with the 24-hour day, while evening light, which we get a lot more of during daylight saving time, actually slows our internal clock down, creating this heavy biological burden. To put that into perspective, the macro impact of those sleep disruptions is huge. According to the data, if the U.S. adopted permanent standard time, the drop in that circadian burden could lead to 2.6 million fewer obesity cases, not to mention 300,000 fewer strokes nationwide. That's a staggering public health shift, all stemming from simply giving our bodies the morning light they desperately need to run at peak biological efficiency.
Moving on to Section 2, larks, owls, and performance. How chronotypes dictate cognitive peaks and troughs. Okay, I want you to lean in for a second and think about this famous logic puzzle from Daniel Kahneman. It's called the Linda problem. Based on her profile, she's an outspoken, justice-seeking, anti-nuke philosophy major. Which scenario is statistically more probable for Linda? Is she a bank teller or a feminist bank teller?
Statistically, she's much more likely to just be a bank teller. A feminist bank teller is a smaller subset of all bank tellers. Choosing the feminist option is a cognitive trap we call the conjunction fallacy. But here's the biological twist. You are way more likely to avoid this trap and nail this analytical task correctly when your body temperature and alertness are hitting their absolute daily peak.
Now, your specific peak depends entirely on your chronotype. That's your personal pattern of circadian rhythms. Are you an early rising lark, a night owl, or maybe a third bird somewhere in the middle? For larks and third birds, that peak analytic time is usually the morning. For owls, it's actually late at night. Everyone experiences a peak, a low-energy trough, and a recovery rebound. Navigating those phases is absolutely crucial to your performance.
So if you align your tasks to these biological rhythms, you get a massive advantage. Analytic tasks like that Linda problem require peak vigilance and focus, so you definitely want to tackle those during your circadian peak. But what about creative insight tasks like solving a lateral thinking puzzle? Those are actually solved much faster during your off-peak or recovery hours. It sounds counterintuitive, right? But it's because your mental inhibitions and filters drop, which makes room for those sudden flashes of creative illumination.
That brings us to Section 3, eating and sleeping for success, optimizing intake and habits for peak performance.
Knowing your peaks is one thing, but how do we fuel them? Enter chrononutrition, eating in sync with your biological clock. To optimize your day, you actually want to get your proteins and fats in during the morning to stimulate dopamine production. That boosts your motivation right out of the gate. By midday, you're shifting to whole grains, veggies, and protein to sustain that energy. And this is key. In the evening, prioritize fiber, protein, and light complex carbs, and make sure to finish dinner at least 4 hours before sleep. Eating too close to bedtime just slows down your metabolism and promotes fat accumulation. No one wants that.
And what if you're trying to engineer a high-performance early wake-up, like hitting the ground running at 5 a.m.? Well, don't just jump into it blindly. You've got to train your biology. Adjust your alarm 15 minutes earlier every few days so you don't shock your system. Maintain a ruthlessly consistent sleep schedule, yes, even on the weekends. And finally, use habit stacking to build momentum. Basically, attach a new behavior to an old one. So the second your feet hit the floor, you drink water and then immediately stretch. Boom, routine locked in.
All right, let's zoom out to Section 4, inside the founder factory, translating individual optimization into organizational power.
So, once you've dialed in your internal clock for a high-ops tempo, what kind of environment do you need to really thrive? Enter Palantir. Now, regardless of the polarizing nature of their government and defense work, and we are just looking objectively at their organizational mechanics here, it is their massive, highly specific mission statement that acts like a talent magnet. Palantir solves the world's most important problems at the world's most important institutions. That level of scale magnetically attracts intrinsically motivated, highly optimized talent who want to make a massive, tangible impact right out of the gate.
And the sheer scale of their talent density, it's staggering. Look at this conversion rate. Out of an estimated 4,000 former Palantir employees, roughly 10%, around 400 individuals, have gone on to launch their own startups. 10%. That is an incredibly high conversion rate of employees turning into entrepreneurs. It proves that the internal environment there acts like a pressure cooker, forging people who know exactly how to build and execute.
Just contrast the slow, traditional corporate climb against Palantir's trial-by-fire model. In a standard firm, you might spend 2 years trapped in Excel, then gradually graduate to PowerPoint, staying risk-averse and heavily circumscribed. But at Palantir's founder factory, young employees are handed massive ownership from week one. They're thrown straight into complex deployments and basically just told to figure it out. It's an environment with incredibly low problem definition, which forces you to act like a founder immediately.
Which leads us perfectly into Section 5, cultivating extreme agency, the mechanics of building a high-ops tempo culture.
This extreme agency doesn't happen by accident. It begins with a rigorously intentional hiring process. Candidates are put through decomp interviews, where they're hit with impossible, totally unstructured problems. Think, how would you optimize an elevator bank or design a subway system where every passenger always gets a seat? They aren't looking for a perfect technical answer here. They're testing for abstract thinking, grit, and your ability to break a totally amorphous challenge down into bite-sized chunks.
They are purposefully screening for individuals who embody a very specific mindset: low ego, high ops tempo. Meaning, you need a relentless bias toward action. If something's broken, you fix it. If a client needs a completely wacky solution, you build it. It's all about delivering outcomes without the baggage of personal arrogance. You have to function entirely as a learning machine.
And this culminates in their defining structural advantage, the forward-deployed engineer. Now, these aren't just IT support folks. These are core engineers embedded directly on site with the client. They bypass all the traditional corporate bureaucracy to literally duct tape solutions together in real time. By taking amorphous software and shaping it directly against the customer's immediate friction points, they create this incredible culture of extreme ownership and rapid iteration.
So, as we wrapped up this explainer, I want to leave you with a provocative thought. We've seen exactly how to engineer your circadian rhythm, how to habit stack your mornings, and how to eat for peak performance. But ask yourself this: if you perfectly master your internal biological clock and achieve that elite level of personal ops tempo, do you actually have the high agency mindset required to survive and thrive in a culture without a safety net?